Hey, what's good, YouTube? This is your boy LX Dark Sniper, the #1 leader in esports entertainment. And I'm going to cut straight to the chase here. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I believe a new Fight Night boxing game is coming. However, I want to warn you that this is all rumor and speculation at the moment. However, we are going to go down and break down some clues as to why I believe we might just be getting what we've been asking for. So let's cut to the chase. As many of you already know, EA Sports has recently announced that current IBO, WBA, IBF, and WBO heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua and WBC and lineal heavyweight champion Tyson Fury have already been announced for UFC 4. What doesn't get mentioned though is that these fighters are also under 2 different stables of boxing promotions respectively, with Fury being with Top Rank and Joshua under the promotion of Eddie Hearn. It is possible that with these fighters will come a much more robust roster in a new Fight Night game, as they will be negotiating deals on their behalf and for their likeness. So what that means is that if there is a new boxing game on the horizon, there's a 99% chance that Oscar De La Hoya would be in the game, which also makes negotiations much easier for several fighters on the roster, such as Canelo Alvarez, who's another Golden Boy fighter. I really hope that we can get a decent amount of Top Rank and Golden Boy fighters and even Al Heyman fighters in the new Fight Night. Considering Eddie Hearn's enthusiasm about getting a new boxing game made, I don't think it will be difficult to get some of his fighters in the game. Rose Diddy No Relation made a video that elaborates on these points that I would advise you to check out. When I say the biggest star in boxing, I am referring to none other than Floyd Money Mayweather himself. In the past, it's been well documented that the reason why Floyd has not appeared in any boxing games past Fight Night Round 2 is because his asking price was too high for EA to justify including him in the game. However, that has been several years ago, and Floyd has since retired from boxing. However, Floyd has shown that he has been open to return to fight in exhibition fights and risk actual physical damage if the price is right. Including him in a new Fight Night game, however, will be a low-risk, high-reward move and will allow him to add to one of his many streams of income. Now, if it sounds too far-fetched to think that Floyd could very well be in the next Fight Night game, I want to bring attention to 3 very important points. Number 1, Mayweather Promotions has made a tweet recently mentioning Fight Night and a discussion on who should be on the cover of the game. I think the fact that Floyd's company is even entertaining this thought speaks volumes for where his stance was in 2011 to when Fight Night Champion was released to now. If Floyd is going to be included in the game, I actually feel like he'll be the perfect candidate to be the cover athlete to sell copies. Number 2, it's bigger than just Floyd Mayweather himself now. Now that Floyd is retired from boxing and has transitioned into a promoter, it has to be taken into consideration that quite a few of his boxers would need to be considered to be in a new Fight Night, such as Gervonta Tank Davis. It will be a smart business move to be open to negotiations to not only get himself paid, but other fighters on his roster as well. Number 3, the odds are in history's favor. When it comes to retired athletes that were not featured in related video games in their respective sport in their prime, that list is longer than you think. At one point, it seemed near impossible for Mike Tyson to appear in a video game after Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on the NES, going several years without appearing in any boxing game until Mike Tyson's Heavyweight Boxing on PS1, which did not receive very favorable reviews on release. Tyson did not appear on any of the Fight Night games until Fight Night Round 4 in 2009, which was well received and was heavily used in the marketing for that game. Michael Jordan was another athlete who has a long history of not appearing in video games until the very end of his career and well into his retirement. During his prime, it was common to see him known as player number 99, or he would be given a generic name instead of Jordan number 23 in many NBA games. When NBA Street Volume 2 was released in 2003, Jordan was used heavily in the marketing for that game, which surprised many that he was featured in the game after so long, not appearing in a basketball game since, from my recollection, would be NBA Showdown on Super Nintendo in 1993. History will repeat itself again when Jordan was the featured athlete in NBA 2K11, which many claim to be the greatest NBA 2K in its storied history. Even Charles Barkley has appeared in an NBA 2K game within the last decade after his own long history of being absent from the game and also having spin-off games that didn't receive that well of attention. I said all of this to say that the odds look good for Floyd to be featured in a future Fight Night game if they decide to make one. Floyd's likeness in the game would be a drop in the bucket for him financially, as he has done very well in maximizing his earning potential during his time in boxing, so he wouldn't need the money, so to speak. Making it possible, he would be more open to negotiations with EA. And with the long history of retired athletes who went on to lend their likeness in video games that didn't catch on with the consumer in one way or the other, Floyd is following this pattern to a T. So the odds of seeing Mayweather appear in a future Fight Night game is not as impossible as one might think. And for those of the people who think that money is an issue and EA can't afford it, I want to remind people that Electronic Arts is worth $22 billion as of 2020. And I think the age-old excuse of money being a problem for a Fight Night game not being made is BS in my humble opinion. At the time of this video, there are 3 boxing titles that are currently in development. Hard Knock Lights by Canadapt Studio, Round for Round Boxing, and the recently announced EA Sports Boxing Club by Steel City Interactive. All 3 of these games have been in development for quite some time, and while I understand that game development is a very long and arduous process, I don't see any of these boxing titles being released anytime soon. I do hope that these games do get finished and released to the public, as I'm looking forward to playing these new boxing games. How this ties into Fight Night is the fact that despite the fact that we do have these 3 games in development, Fight Night is still the gold standard. So these games will have a tall mountain to climb to reach the critical acclaim and status that the Fight Night boxing games have achieved. If there is actually a new Fight Night game coming, these studios may also know some details that we don't. And while the competition is already going to be stiff amongst these 3 boxing games alone, competing against a new Fight Night will make it even that much harder when you have 3 brand new game engines being developed from scratch, competing against a tried and true engine with a higher development budget, such as the mechanics found in Fight Night. If a new Fight Night game is coming, I'm afraid that some of these titles could potentially get lost in the shuffle. Either way, I do hope these games see a release, as the boxing gaming community is starving for something new. This point, I believe, holds the most weight of them all, especially when you consider these boxers' pedigree in the sport of boxing, and for a few of them, their long-standing relationship with EA Sports. Exhibit A, Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis, the former 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, has a long-standing history with EA Sports in their relative boxing games. He has been in nearly every boxing game EA has ever made, dating back to Knockout Kings on the PS1. and he has also appeared on the cover of numerous EA boxing titles, including the critically acclaimed Knockout Kings 2003. In February of this year, Lewis clearly states in a tweet that EA Sports is considering bringing back the Fight Night series. And I find the timing of this to be very interesting, as it aligns with the heavily rumored expiration of the deal between EA Sports and the UFC in regards to their simulation combat games. Considering Lewis and his relationship with EA, it makes complete sense that he will be contacted about appearing in another boxing game, since he's in nearly all of them. So it makes sense that he would be one of the first to know. Moving on to Exhibit B. Oscar De La Hoya. Much like Lennox Lewis, the Golden Boy Oscar De La Hoya has a storied history with the EA Sports boxing titles. In the terms of Knockout Kings and the Fight Night series, Oscar was the first cover athlete for Knockout Kings in 1999, and also appeared on the cover of Fight Night Round 3, which some believe to be the best Fight Night game in the entire series. Earlier this past July, Oscar made a tweet mentioning the Fight Night series, seeming to stir up interest in boxing and gamers alike. And once again, the timing of this tweet is telling, which seems to be not too long after Lennox Lewis said what he said in his tweet. And if there is anyone who would be guaranteed to be a lock in a future Fight Night game, it's Oscar De La Hoya. If there is a new game on the horizon, he would be one of the first to know, along with Lennox Lewis. Exhibit C. Floyd Mayweather Jr. I'm not going to go into too much detail, since I've mentioned at length the possibility of him being in the game and what that means. But in short, I think it's quite interesting that Mayweather Promotions mentions Fight Night only 11 days after De La Hoya brought up the series himself. Do you think a fire's starting to brew with this much smoke? You be the judge. And on to Exhibit D. And I think this is the most telling piece of information that leads me to believe that a new Fight Night is coming. Exhibit D. Claressa Shields. In terms of the most convincing evidence of a new Fight Night game coming, I believe the two-time Olympic gold medalist and multi-divisional undisputed champion Claressa Shields has revealed the most clues that leads me to believe that we are closer than ever to a new Fight Night. Let me break down the details. First off, we'll start off on a video that I made a while back in August of last year, where she mentioned that she was contacted about a new Fight Night game coming out. When you listen to the clip, she specifically says, Fight Night.
I got a call the other day. The PS4 is coming out with Fight Night 4, really? I believe, and they want to have me on the game system. I'm stoked. Oh, so I feel like, yo, hold on a sec. Like, I think it's just the best thing ever for them to even have that thought, you know, to mention me in a boxing game. To me, it's a big deal, and I'm super excited about it. I can't wait for all of it to come to fruition, and, you know, make sure when a game come out, everybody get my character.
What was your stats?
Now, to be fair, she did say Fight Night 4, which was already released back in 2009, so she did get the title incorrect. But even still, she made it very clear at that time the boxing game that she was contacted about was Fight Night. Shields later on in a tweet corrected her statement, saying that she was not contacted about Fight Night, but it was for Round Boxing, an independent boxing game that is currently in development, scheduled for release this year or early next year. However, I have reasonable degree of skepticism behind that Round Boxing announcement. I've been following the development of Round Boxing for quite some time, and normally whenever they have a new boxer announced for the game, they will usually make an official announcement on their Twitter, and the said fighter will be listed on their official website. However, if you check their Twitter, the only mention of Shields being in that game is through the same retweet where she retracted her Fight Night statement. When you check the website, Claressa Shields' name is nowhere to be found on their confirmed roster for the game.
Huh?
What I personally believe is that Shields was telling the truth the whole time in saying that Fight Night was coming, but she quickly had to retract that statement so she wouldn't get in any trouble behind the scenes. If you listen to how she said what she said, it came from a place of genuine enthusiasm, and from the way she said it, I get the sense that she is very familiar with the Fight Night games, and she may have played them herself when she was young. And also, to add fuel to the fire, Shields also made a retweet recently about an added comment from Mayweather Promotions' tweet that I mentioned earlier about adding women boxers to Fight Night. This wouldn't be the first time that EA has done this, as they have had female fighters in Knockout Kings 2001 on PlayStation 2. Me personally, I would love to see female representation in the game, and I would love to see Claressa Shields and all of the upcoming female fighters in the game today being a new Fight Night. So when you add all of this information up, to me it sounds like Shields has brought up more about the Fight Night series than she has round for round boxing. Maybe I'm looking a little bit too deep into this. If I am, let me know. Maybe I'm crazy, you be the judge. But it would also be cool to have legends in the game too, as I would love to knock some females out with Ann Wolfe. And if you don't know who Ann Wolfe is, I suggest looking her up and putting some respect on her name.
Scared of her and did not fight her.
And that concludes the end of this video. I've listed 4 reasons on why I believe a new Fight Night game is on the horizon. And if you agree or if you disagree, please let me know in the comments. And as always, this video is taken as rumor and speculation. None of this is fact because we have not gotten an official confirmation that a new boxing game is here. So you can take this with a grain of salt, but also pay attention to the clues that are surrounding. So let me know what you guys think. This is LX Dark Sniper, and I'm signing out. Peace.